we have somebody who is going to join us on the show. She's very passionate about mental health and young people. Of course, depression is part of mental health. I'm being joined on the program this afternoon by Lade Olugbemi. She's the convener, Nous Foundation.
Yes.
It's a pleasure to have you.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, good to see you again.
Same.
The World Mental Health Day was celebrated recently.
Yes.
What was the focus for the year 2018, and how much have you achieved in your quest at ensuring that we limit the number of people being affected with mental health?
Okay, so every year the World Health Organization picks a theme, and usually it's around trending themes, and this year the spotlight was on young people in a changing world. So there have been lots of statistics, lots of information that has been out in the media around the increased number of young people who are actually developing mental illness. We do know that most people who develop mental illness later on in years or in their life, they actually develop mental illness before, the signs actually show before they're 14. So
really?
Yes, the signs actually show before they're 14.
What are those signs?
It ranges. I'm not a psychiatrist, but I can say from the things that I've read and from observations in the community and the support that I have offered people in the community, that it's usually signs that are sometimes confused with growing up, with teenage tantrums and all of that. So it's sometimes very difficult, and that is why most times it is not picked, because people think that it may be the changes in hormones. So when a child is very weepy, they're sometimes aggressive, they lock themselves up in the room, they're too chatty or not chatty. They're all different types of signs that it can be, but it's usually very, very difficult. But one of the things that I do know that psychiatrists say is that most of the time mental illnesses actually do show the signs before they're 14, and there's an extremely high rate of younger people these days developing mental illness. Before, I know that they would not usually confirm a diagnosis for a young person until they're 21. That's because the brain is still forming. Sometimes the brain does not form fully until people are over 21, so they'll wait until then. But unfortunately now, I'm noticing that psychiatrists are sometimes having to give a type of diagnosis for young people as young as 17, 18. They are. So we know that children as young as 9, 10 they've been diagnosed with depression now. Yep.
What could make a 9-year-old girl or boy depressed?
Different things. One of the things that I do know is social media. So most parents these days introduce their children at a very young age to social media. So I know kids as young as 4 or 5, they have their iPads, they got onto YouTube. I know that kids as young as 4 years old actually have YouTube channel. The fact is, unlike when we were growing up, when our form of entertainment was Ludo, our form of entertainment was going out on the street and playing tente, go to your neighbor's house and all of that. Most families and most kids are growing up these days in a very insular way, extremely insular. So a lot of us are revolve around social media. And yes, a 10-year-old could have issues with their bodies because of things they've seen outside, the pictures that social media has portrayed to them as to what the ideal body is. So a 10-year-old that is still growing up with what we call puppy fat will feel that, oh, I'm fat. These are things that are real. We may laugh at it, but it is very, very real to them, and they can actually develop depression. So mental illness is actually growing. The barrier is actually being pushed backward. And I suppose that's one of the reasons why World Health Organization decided this year that they should actually have the spotlight on young people. Young people. Because they're the next generation. In fact, they are the generation for now, not even next. The issue is if you don't deal with them, if you don't know how to work with them, to recognize these signs of how they can become more resilient. We've grown up in a generation where our parents taught us how to be resilient. So for those who went to boarding school, they went there and they were taught things. You were told to go and cut the grass. You'd wake up early to go and fetch water and all of that. Our kids are growing up with a very easy lifestyle. So they don't have the capacity to deal with tough things when they happen, when it comes in their life. And they just break very easily. So the issue is, we as community members, community leaders, parents, uncles, aunties, managing director, whatever sphere we find ourselves in that we can influence, we need to start thinking of how we need to change the way we work with our young people.
So how do we change that?
It's what
strategy do we adopt?
Okay, that's a very long one. I think this is where government needs to come in. Yes, there's the local thing we can do, because with the bigger society, every society operates from a microcosm level. So you need to start from the family level. You as a mother, as an aunt, how do you train your child to be mentally resilient? It's not an information, or it's not it's not an information that I can give you straight away. Now, how do you train somebody to be mentally resilient? You need to challenge people. You need to not take them very quickly away from problems. Don't jump in to solve a child's problem. So your child fails an exam, or your child comes back and say, "Oh, I failed," and he's crying. Say, "Oh, don't worry." Don't go talking to the teacher to say, "Oh, you know what? You talked too loudly to my child yesterday. Take it easy with my child."
Let her face it.
Let them face it. We need to allow young people to face the challenges that come their way. And that's one of the things that a lot of us, I was speaking somewhere on Saturday, and I had to say to the audience that we parents need to acknowledge that we failed our younger ones. I own up, because I know that a lot of the time, before anything happens to them, I'll step in. We need to recognize that. For this younger generation, we need to allow them to learn some lessons themselves. Let them understand what failure is. Let them understand what it is to recover. We need to step back a bit. From the government perspective, government needs to come in as well. From the school perspective, there's a lot of things we need to do. One of the things that I'm trained as is to be a mental health first aider. So I'm a mental health first aider, and that was the certificate that was gotten in England. Part of what we are taught to do is to recognize there's 7 heads for being a mental health first aider, is to recognize what the signs are for the basic mental illnesses that we have. So there's depression, there's eating disorder, there's psychosis, there are 6 of them.
Eating disorder is part of mental health.
It is a mental illness. Eating disorder is a mental illness. A lot of people don't understand. Bulimia, it is a form of mental illness, because it's something got to do with the impairment of the mind. When the person looks at themselves, you're a size 12 and you think you're too fat. You're a size 10 and you still think you're too fat. So you now starve yourself, you don't eat. It's an impairment of the mind. So we have all those range that we need to recognize what the signs are. And I think teachers, especially teachers and parents, need to seek information about how to work with ourselves. You cannot give what you don't have. So you asked a right question earlier, how do we deal with it? You need to go and seek information about what are the signs. How can I help my child? How can I stop my child thinking that there is an issue with their body? How can I boost my child's self-esteem? How can I get them comfortable in their skin and not think that because they're dark they need to bleach their skin, or because their hair is not straight, so I need to go and buy human hair. You need to be comfortable in who you are, in who God has made you.
Does that include grooming? When you groom your child to be confident, all those things will not give him or her complex.
Well, I have known people who are very confident, who have mental health issues, who have mental illnesses. So it's not, yes, you can be confident, but still have internal issues that you're dealing with. And that's why we find a lot of very popular stars who have all the money, who are very comfortable in their skin, they still have issues. So one has to maintain a balance with this. There has to be a balance, because you can have all of those things and still not be comfortable. Robin Williams was an extremely very, very, very rich comedian, made his name, made everything. But he looked at himself one day and he thought, you know what, life is not worth living. And decided to take his own life. So we'll not use the yardstick that we use.
Wacko Jacko out to do something to his body at some time.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the spotlight this year is on young people. And I know that we as a community, we need to rise up to know how to support our young people rightly. Don't jump in to stop them from failing. Don't jump in to think that I have to help my child out. They need to go to the best school. Let them experience the toughness of life. Send them to a boarding school where they need to wake up as early as 5 a.m. Let them go and fetch water. These were the things that we had to go through when I was growing up. And I know that a lot of the things that I had gone through in life, if I'd not had a lot of the development and the life opportunities that was thrown my way, not due to any choice, I probably would have crumbled as well. And that's the truth.
We need to prepare them ahead.
We do.
That life is like this, it's full of ups and downs.
Absolutely.
I had an experience of recent, deliberately, I decided to take my daughter to school in a tricycle. And while going, the road was bumpy, and she was complaining that, so why is the tricycle sounding bang, 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 bang? I said, okay, those that trek to school in the morning, that is what they experience.
Absolutely. Absolutely. There was actually the case of one man in America who the child complained that, oh, Dad, I was late for school. And you know what the father did? He said, you know what, I'm going to drive in front and you walk the next 2 miles. You're going to walk to school today. That is a life lesson, because some kids actually walk to school. It's a life. We need to throw our kids, we need to throw the young people to opportunities for them to become mentally resilient and not run back and not draw back. We have failed. We failed our kids, and that's the truth. So the spotlight this year on mental health and young people is something we need to talk about. And we also need to know the signs so that they can be nipped in the bud, the signs of mental illness. So you talked about, so I just mentioned now about eating disorder, when a person overeats or undereats. Overeating can actually be a mental illness. Overeating and undereating is both ways. So how do you know the sign? Whether this is actually just because this person is used to eating too much, or just because this person does not like to eat. We need to arm ourselves.
I don't like to eat.
That's what I'm saying. So that would not be a mental illness. But a person who eats normally suddenly stops eating and starts to... I know of a very extreme case of this young lady who actually eats toilet roll to fill her stomach so she'll not be hungry.
That's strange.
Because the toilet roll has no calories. That's what I'm saying about eating disorder actually being a mental illness. Because to her, when she eats, whatever thing she eats will blow her up. So she resorted to chewing something that will give her the semblance of eating, that will fill her stomach up to continue living. So there are various ranges of mental illness that a lot of people do not recognize and do not understand.
Okay, so what are people like you doing to solve this problem?
Okay, like I said earlier, I'm a mental health
Because the majority of us here, we are not paying attention to such.
We are not at all. Okay, would it be okay to say that I'm actually not based here?
I know.
Okay, I'm based in UK, and I'm a mental health first aider. I train people to be a mental health first aider. And what a mental health first aider does is that you are expected to be able to respond at first instance to any sign of mental illness, just like you train a physical first aider. So if an accident happens, first aiders are meant to help to, put the bone together. If a person has anxiety disorder and they have a panic attack, you teach them how to, count their breath, relax, and all of that. You respond at first instance the same way mental health first aiders would respond at first instance if a person is experiencing psychosis, for example. Psychosis is when a person has either auditory or visual signs of things other people are that they are seeing and other people cannot see. So they may either hear, they may either feel, or they may either see those things that is real to them. But how do you know whether that person is experiencing psychosis, or probably just person is just delirious? So those are the things that you go through in a 2-day course to understand, and that is what I do. I train people to become mental health first aiders.
Okay, so what do you say to teachers or parents who are watching us right now, maybe unconsciously they have forced their child or children to develop mental health? Because when you make some comments, it could affect the reason of that child.
Absolutely. Like, I know that words are very powerful. Words once spoken, I'm a Yoruba person, there's a Yoruba proverb that says that, words are eggs. Once you break them, you cannot put them together. And that is why we as parents, as aunties, as whatever position you are in the community, we need to be careful of how we speak to our young ones. Speak words of affirmation, but not words that would let their egos be blown up. Speak words of reality to let them know that this is what life is. Support your child in the right way. Give them the right information as well. So for a teacher who is out there, you need to know the signs so that you can help your child, so that you can help that child in class that may be showing signs of things going on at home. So I know sexual abuse is a rife thing in our communities that we don't like to talk about. There's incest happening in our community that people don't like to talk about. fathers who are molesting their children or mothers who are molesting their sons. It is reality, it is happening.
It is.
It is happening. But teachers are one of the first people who can actually notice those signs when they see a child in a classroom environment. Because usually when a child is going through tough times at home, the classroom environment is the most relaxed place for them to just be themselves. So teachers need to know the signs. And that's what mental health first aid training is all about. They need to know the signs so that they can actually intervene very quickly. Mental illness is actually a broad spectrum.
Okay.
So you start from the low to the medium and high. When you have early intervention at the low state, at the low, where it is at the low spectrum, people can recover. When it is medium, they may or they may not recover. But when it goes to high, usually it's extremely difficult for people like that to recover.
Wow.
And what we're saying is that let's catch things early.
Okay.
Let's notice what the signs are and deal with them appropriately.
All right, Lade, Olugbemi, we must thank you very much for coming on the show today.
Thank you for having
to educate us on the signs that people need to watch out for when it comes to mental health, especially among our young people.